Hi, I'm Tracy Iraka, Executive Director of the MDS Foundation, and we're here today at the first workshop for Myelodysplastic Syndromes in Miami, Florida, and I wanted to bring some of the conversations that were happening today to our patients and their families at home, just to understand why we're doing what we're doing, how these conversations are going to translate into patient care. So I'm joined by three lovely panelists that are going to each introduce themselves, and then we'll just have a couple of quick questions that will, I think, be really important to our patient and family audience. Rena.
Hi, I'm Rena Buckstein from the Odette Cancer Center in Toronto, Canada.
I'm Rafael Behar from University of California, San Diego.
Hi, I'm Valeria Santini, University of Florence and MDS group in Italy. All Italy then.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and thank you for taking the time out of this busy day to chat with me. I think we can start by talking about some of the things that we mentioned during the sessions this morning, and primarily about clinical trials, about why those trials are so important to our patients, the importance of considering a clinical trial, and also why there was so much talk about improvements that need to be made in the clinical trial process. Rena, do you want to start?
Sure. So first of all, clinical trials are the only way that we make progress in this disease. It's only with initial phase 1-2 studies to establish safety and efficacy of a drug, and then finally phase 3 studies that establish that one treatment is better than the other, that we move the field forward and hopefully impact important endpoints. And the endpoints that we discussed today at great length are what are the most important endpoints, but I think the consensus was quality of life for our patients, which is negatively impacted by the disease, as well as overall survival, and especially in our higher risk patients. So a lot of what was discussed today in the clinical trials was what are the most important endpoints we should consider, and are the existing clinical trial endpoints that are being considered for licensing the appropriate ones, yes or no? And also, how do we better optimize our trials to quickly answer these questions?
Thank you. Is there anything else to add? I know there was a bit of conversation about making sure we include the right patient, really patients that are more indicative of the disease, into these trials for obvious reasons. Does anyone want to elaborate a little on that? About why maybe that's not happening right now, or why that's so important to, as we're looking forward, to include the right patients?
Yeah, I can jump in. Generally speaking, our clinical trials are designed to test the efficacy or safety of a drug, and we're looking for patients that don't necessarily have a lot of other things that might confound that answer. So we tend to include patients in our clinical study that are probably a little bit healthier, maybe perhaps a little bit younger than the patient population that actually has the disease. And it's important that we keep in mind that when a drug is approved, it's going to be used in the broader population. So we want to make sure that we're looking at patients in our clinical studies that look like the patients who come to our clinic outside of that clinical study. And we want to make sure that the endpoints that we're looking at are reflective of that broader population, that we're not just looking for the most fit or the healthiest or the youngest patients in our clinical trials.
Thank you. Dr. Santini, do you have anything to add?
No, I absolutely agree. And I would add to these that sometimes we tend to treat the patients with MDS irrespective of their molecular or their genetic differences and alterations. And this would be very important, on the other hand, to consider. So if we not only consider the entire population, but also the characteristics of the individual patients, maybe we can offer them the best therapy. And again, it would be very important to include patients in clinical trial offering these new agents that sometimes are really specific for genetic alterations. So this means 2 levels of characterization of the patients. That is very important. And one general thing I always stress with my patients is that if you are included in a clinical trial, the attention and the care you receive is much higher, just because we control and we check that nothing is happening to the patients because of the evaluation of the safety of the drug, but also because we want to record any possible change in their values and their counts in a way that they will feel, I think, very much more followed than usual.
trials.
I would also like to add that you have access on a clinical trial to perhaps the most important cutting-edge drug that's going to change the natural history of the disease, sometimes 2, 3, 4 years before it's widely available in the general public. So it's another way of accessing, exciting new targeted agents. And as Valeria said, our ultimate goal is to personalize our therapies, right? Is to look at an individual patient and say, this is the right treatment for you, and with the best possible chances of response and maybe the lowest toxicity, for example.
Wonderful, thank you.